Keep going. You'll raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Do I repeat it?
No, ma'am, just say you did.
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. Have a seat, please. I need you to speak up. There's a small black microphone there in front of you. I need you to speak up into that for me. That will help me hear. Can you do that for me?
Yes.
Okay, if you'll tell me your first name and last name and spell them both.
Renee, R-E-N-E-E, Reese, R-E-E-S-E.
And just a little bit louder, be perfect, okay? You're fine. Questions?
Yes. Miss Reese, where are you from?
Memphis, Tennessee.
And can you tell me, are you currently a student?
Yes.
And where are you a student at?
Middle Tennessee State.
And what are you studying?
Psychology.
Where did you grow up?
Memphis,
And what year did you graduate from high school?
2010.
And after high school, did you immediately come to MTSU in the fall?
Yes.
And why did you choose MTSU? Close to home?
Close to home. $901.
Now, I want to ask you some questions about your relationship with certain people. How would you describe your relationship with Shanterrica Madden?
We were friends in my freshman year. Well, second semester freshman year, we were friends.
Okay. Did you know each other, for example, in high school?
No, we met in college.
In college, okay. And as far as Tina Stewart, did you know her?
No.
Now, when you, as far as that last semester in the spring of 2011, how often would you see Miss Madden?
Almost every day.
Okay. And tell us why you would see her almost every day.
She was in Corlew a lot because her and her roommate didn't get along, so she stayed in Corlew a lot with a friend.
Now, Corlew, is that a dormitory?
Yes.
On the MTSU campus?
Yes.
And you say she stayed there a lot. When was it, or the period of time that she was staying there a lot? Was it in the spring semester, the fall semester, or when was it, if you recall?
It was spring semester.
And you know who she stayed in her dorm room with?
Yes. Carlisha Caldwell.
And you know Carlisha Caldwell?
Yes.
And how would you describe your relationship with her?
We're friends.
Now, as far as you and Miss Madden, did y'all ever socialize and go out and eat together, or things of that nature?
Yes.
Did she know what your name was?
Yes.
Did she know that your last name was Reese?
Yes.
What did she call you?
Renee.
Now, on any given week, can you estimate how many times she would stay at Corlew back in the spring?
Like 3 or 4 times out the week.
Now, do you know any, as far as the relationship between Miss Caldwell and Miss Madden, did Miss Caldwell ever provide transportation for Miss Madden?
Yes.
Now, I want to take you to March the 2nd, 2011, the reason why you're here today. Can you tell me what classes you would have had that day, if you remember? Or could you tell me when you got out of class?
I'm trying to remember whether it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday.
This would be a Wednesday.
A Wednesday. I had 3 classes that day. I was probably through by 3, 2:45, 3.
On that particular day, would you have had any classes with Miss Madden?
No.
Okay. On that particular day, would you have come into contact with her after you got out of class?
Yes.
And you know approximately where it was and when it was that you came into contact with her?
It was Corlew after my class.
Okay, the dorm.
We met him, yes.
And specifically, do you remember where you were at in Corlew?
I remember us going to get something to eat in McCally's, which is the cafeteria right below Corlew.
Okay. Now, I may have neglected to ask you, but where were you living at this time?
It's Corlew.
Corlew.
Yes.
And did you live on the same floor that Miss Madden was living on?
Yes.
So after y'all had gotten something to eat, can you tell me what you did next?
We went to one of the other places. I think we got ice cream that day. We went to another cafeteria place on campus. And then we went to buy the weed, and we went to...
Let me stop you there.
Okay.
After you got your ice cream and things like that, are you about to tell us about a purchase of drugs?
Yes.
And can you tell us where it was that you actually got drugs?
On campus.
And who was it that actually purchased the drugs?
Me and Shanterrica, we were together at that time.
Who paid for them?
I don't quite remember.
Okay. And you know what kind of drugs did you buy?
It was weed.
Marijuana?
Yes, marijuana.
Okay. And you know how much you bought?
Just like a gram, I think. I don't know. I can't remember.
Just so the ladies and gentlemen jury will know, if you're going to make one marijuana cigarette or put marijuana in a cigar, would that be enough for one? Two?
Yes.
How many?
One or two.
Okay. And then after you had purchased the marijuana along with Miss Madden, where did you go next?
First we went to the store.
Okay.
Then we went to her apartment.
Okay. When you went to the store, what was the purpose for going to the store?
To buy the cigarillos.
Okay. And what kind of cigarillos did you buy?
I just remember, I believe they were strawberry. That's all I remember.
Okay. And what was the reason that you'd buy cigarillos or?
For the marijuana.
Okay. And then what store did you go to, if you remember?
I don't remember.
Was it near campus?
Yes.
Were y'all walking during all of this?
Yes.
All right. Then after you'd made the purchase of the drugs and purchase of the cigarillos or cigars, where'd you go next?
To Shanterrica's apartment.
And can you approximate about what, and I know this is approximation, you didn't have your watch on watching anything, but what time do you think that you got to Shanterrica's apartment?
It was around 5.
Okay. And would that be 321 Raiders Crossing? You know the number?
I don't remember the number. I just remember it was her apartment.
Okay. And was that the same apartment that she shared with Tina Stewart?
With Tina, yes.
When you got at the apartment, did you notice if anyone else was there?
No. We believe that we were there by ourselves.
Okay. And when you got to the apartment and thought you were there by yourselves, what did y'all do?
We smoked the weed. We watched TV. We smoked the weed.
Do you remember what you watched on TV?
Yes.
What was it?
106 in Park.
Okay. Now, you say you smoked the marijuana. Can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what process you would have to go through to smoke the marijuana as y'all did it?
Okay, well, first you have to break the cigarillo down, take the shavings out, put the weed in, and roll it back up, pretty much.
And who did that?
Shanterrica.
She was the one that actually prepared the cigarillo, or
Yes.
did both of y'all smoke the marijuana?
Yes.
And what room were you in when you smoked the marijuana?
Shanterrica's room.
Now, as far as Corlew Hall, does it have smoke detectors there?
Yes.
And do they allow smoking in Corlew Hall?
No.
And if you were to smoke marijuana there, the possibility the alarm go off?
Yes.
Now, how soon after y'all had completed smoking the marijuana did something else happen? And you knocked at the door or anything like that?
It wasn't long at all. Maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes. It wasn't long at all.
Do you know if you ever raised any windows of the apartment while you're smoking the marijuana?
I believe we did open Shanterrica's window, but I can't remember if we did or not.
Okay. And after y'all had the marijuana, did you have anything to eat?
Yes, I went and I got a Nutri-Grain and some Sunny D.
Okay. After you got that, then what happened?
Then that's when I heard the knock on the door.
Okay. And once you heard the knock on the door, tell me what you remember seeing and hearing then.
Well, Shanterrica came out to check the door, and when she opened the door, I walked back into her room. And then she came back there. She was like, he said to come out here, and it was the cop. And he was like, why'd you go to the back room? I said, well, this isn't my place. I didn't feel that I needed to be out here when you came in. So I just went to her room, you know.
Okay. At that time, did y'all know that Miss Stewart was there?
Well, by this time she had came from the back. She was standing in the living room.
And was this the first time that you realized that someone had been in the apartment?
Yes.
And then once you came outside and to where the police were, I'm talking about outside of the bedroom,
Yes.
the area, what happened next?
He told us that he had been called for the smoking, and he asked could he check the apartment. And she was like, yes, and he came and he checked. He didn't really find much except for the shavings and the little bit of the blunt that was left that like we couldn't smoke. So he told her to take out the trash, and he told me to flush the remains down the toilet.
Okay. And did you do what he told you? Did you flush
Yes.
it down the toilet?
Yes.
And he told her to take out the trash?
Yes.
And did she take out the trash?
Yes.
Did he go with her?
Yes.
So you're in the apartment. Where are you at in the apartment when they leave?
I was sitting on Shanterrica's bed.
And do you know approximately how long they were outside?
No.
Now, did you see Miss Madden come back inside the apartment?
Yes.
Can you tell me if you noticed anything about her demeanor at that time?
She was upset.
And how could you tell that she was upset?
Just by like, I could just tell like she didn't say anything. She went straight and knocked on Tina's door. And like she didn't say anything to me. She just walked right past the room and knocked on Tina's door.
Yeah, and when she knocked on it, did she knock on it lightly? Or
No.
how did she do it?
She just knocked like she was upset.
Okay. After she knocked on the door, what do you remember seeing next or hearing next?
They were talking.
Well, did Tina open the door? Or you-
Yes, Tina came to the door and they started arguing. She was like, why didn't you tell me? Tina was like, well, you didn't tell me when you called the office about my boyfriend being here. And she was like, I shouldn't have to tell you. And Tina was like, well, I didn't have to tell you. So that's how the argument began.
Okay. At some point, after you heard that argument, where were you at this particular time?
I was still in Shanterrica's room sitting on the bed.
And at some point, did you hear somebody say, don't push me?
Yes. After they were arguing, going back and forth, then I heard somebody say, don't push me.
Do you know who that was?
No.
Okay. So you can't tell us which one it was that actually said that?
No.
Right. And after you heard the don't push me, what did you hear or see next?
Then I heard boom, 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 and I ran to see what was going on, and they were fighting. And then I went back into Shanterrica's room and locked the door.
And once you locked the door, what did you do next?
I called Carlicia.
Carlicia Caldwell?
Carlicia Caldwell, yes,
And what was your purpose in calling her?
to find a ride to get out of there
Why did you want to get out of there?
because they were fighting.
Now, do you know how many times you called Carlicia or how many times you may have called anybody else while you were inside that room?
I called Carlicia maybe 2 or 3 times.
Okay. Whatever the records show, you're aware, you've looked at the records that we have. You do not disagree with any of the phone records, do you?
No.
Okay. At some point, did you hear a knock on the room that you were in Miss Madden's bedroom?
Yes.
And when you heard that knock, what'd you do?
Shanterrica was like, we have to go. She was like, come on, we have to go. I was like, what happened? She was like, we have to go. I was like, where's Tina? She was like, she left. And so I went back to grab my purse, and when I came out, Shanterrica had a blanket and was sticking it in the bag. And I was walking out. She dropped a piece of the knife fell on the floor. And that's when I told her, I was like, I'm leaving. I'm finna find a ride. I'm gone. And
I'm sorry.
okay, and I was in the living room. She was standing like at the front of the hallway. That's where the knife dropped. She hurried up and stuck it back in there, and I was like, I'm leaving. And she was like, she went to hand me the bag, and I was like, I'm not touching it, and I left. I left the apartment
And tell me why you left the apartment.
because they were fighting.
If the phone records report that at 6:07 that you called Miss Caldwell twice, would you agree or disagree with those records?
I agree.
Now, once she tried to give you the bag and you refused to take it, what did you do next?
I left.
And when you say you left, did you go out of the apartment completely?
Yes, I left the apartment completely.
And where did you go?
To the funeral home behind the apartment.
Did you actually go inside the funeral home or just
No,
in the area?
I sat outside the funeral home where it was lit. It was, I think a funeral was just letting out because there was people there, and I went and just stood outside.
At some point, did you talk to someone named Shelby?
Yes,
And was that on the phone? Shelby Humphrey?
Shelby Humphrey, yes.
And what was your purpose in talking to her?
To find a ride.
Now, while you were still outside, did you ever receive any communications from Shanterrica Madden?
Yes, she had texted me and she had called me. She was trying to see where I was. And she finally walked over to me, and I told her, I was like, I found a ride, I'm leaving. And she was like, don't tell anybody, you can't tell anybody. I was like, I'm leaving, you know. She was like, who all did you tell? I said, I called Brittany and Shelby and Kayla.
Did she ever tell you or explain to you whether or not she'd gotten into a fight?
Yes.
What?
Well, when she came out, when she first knocked on the door, and she knocked, I was like, what happened? Because I seen the blood. She was like, she cut me. And so that's all I thought had happened before I left out of her room. That's all I thought had happened was that, you know, they were fighting and she may have gotten scratched or something. I didn't know that it had escalated to what
Now, at
happened.
some time before you left that apartment, did you ever look inside of Tina's room and see anything?
Yes, on my way out of Shanterrica's room, I seen like her legs sitting on the floor. Like I could tell that she was laying out, and that was after Shanterrica told me that she was gone. So I knew something wasn't right.
The plastic bag, can you describe it for us, the one that you put the blanket and stuff in?
It was a big, just like a big clear plastic bag.
At some point, did you hear any conversation? I want to take you back to the room and the incident. Did you hear any conversation or mention of the word knife?
Yes, I heard, she got a knife, stop, my heart hurts, stop. I wasn't sure who was saying it. I wasn't sure what was going on.
Did you ever hear anybody ask to call the police or ask?
Yes.
And you know who said that?
No.
Could you recognize any of the voices that said anything in that room that night or that afternoon?
Everything was jumbled. Everything was, I don't remember.
Now, at some point, did Miss Madden, you said that she called you, did you talk to her on the phone after this had happened?
Yes.
And what did y'all talk about?
She was trying to see where I had went, because this was after I left. When I left, I didn't tell her where I was going. because at that time I didn't know where I was going. I was just leaving. She was like, where are you? Where are you? I was like, I'm at the funeral home. I'm waiting for Shelby and Kayla to come get me. She was like, don't tell anybody what happened. Don't. She was like, I'm coming over there. She approached me. And that's when I seen the cell phone in her bra, which I knew it wasn't hers. Like, she had it kind of sticking out. And when she saw me look, she hurried up and stuck it back in there.
Okay, hold on just a second. Yeah, if I can get the photograph.
Sure.
Ms. Reese, does that appear to be the cell phone that you saw stuck inside of Miss Madden's bra on that particular day?
Yes.
Your Honor, for the record, that's exhibit number 2D.
Thank you.
Now, you were telling us that once you saw the cell phone, do you know whether or not Miss Madden was aware that you had seen it?
Yes.
What makes you think that?
Because she hurried up and stuck it like where it would be out of sight. She stuck it like deeper into her bra.
Did you notice anything else in her bra?
I just know there was 2 phones. That's all I remember seeing.
Now, as far as injuries to Miss Madden, did you see any injuries that she had? I know she mentioned that she told you she'd been cut and there was blood on her arm.
Yes.
But did you see any other injuries?
I saw like a bruise on her face, like up here somewhere on one of the sides. I saw a bruise.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I remember.
What was your emotional state at this time?
Shooken. I was just like, I don't know how to explain it. I was like, oh my gosh, what happened?
And can you tell me how Miss Madden's emotional state appeared?
She was calm.
Did you find that surprising?
Yes.
When you left the room after seeing Miss Stewart's leg and after you'd seen all of the blood, did you feel that something serious had happened there?
Well, at first, when I first left, I did not know that she was dead. The only blood I saw was what was on Shanterrica. Like, all I seen from Tina was her leg, like just the bottom part. So I thought she was maybe injured, but I didn't know that it was.
Okay. When she came out to you, were you comfortable in her presence?
No.
And why was that?
I honestly don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Now, I want to take you back inside the apartment again. Do you remember seeing any punches being thrown between the 2 people?
When they very first started fighting, yes.
Were they both throwing punches or just one?
They were both.
At any time did you see her with the plastic bag on the outside?
Yes, when I was standing outside of the funeral home, I saw her with the plastic bag. Before she came and spoke to me, she had the plastic bag and she walked off with it. Then she came back to speak to me.
When she came back to speak to you, did she have the plastic bag?
No.
Is there a dumpster on the outside? Or do you
Yes.
know?
Well, it's an apartment complex.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
At some point, did you get concerned well, at some point, did some people pick you up that you had called?
Yes.
And did you basically convey to them what circumstances you were in?
Yes. Like I said, at this point, I didn't know that she was dead. I was like, they got to fighting. It was a lot going on. And they was like, have you called the police? And everything. Yeah.
Okay. Now, when they said, have you called the police, I assume that you told them no.
I called the police.
Okay, but you did call after
Yes.
it was brought up. And we have previously heard a phone call where the person did not identify themselves.
Yes.
Was that you?
Yes.
And why was it that you were reluctant to identify yourself?
I was scared. I was shooken up. I don't know.
Now, once your friends picked you up, what else did you do? Or where'd you go?
We went back to Corlew.
And who was it that picked you up?
Shelby and Kayla.
And was there any mention about Miss Madden or whether or not she would be welcome to get in the car with y'all and leave?
Oh, they said she couldn't get in the car.
Okay, who said she can't get in the
Shelby.
car?
Shelby was like, she can't get in the car with us.
And then what? Once you got there, you go back to Corlew Hall?
Yes.
And then at some point, do you find out what has happened as far as Miss Stewart?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I was on Twitter, and I seen it said, rest in peace. First, it was like a basketball player stabbed and killed, and I was like, I didn't know that it was the same person. Then I saw rest in peace Tina Stewart, and I was like, oh my goodness. And then I saw that they said one girl had fled the scene, and that's when I called and told them where I was. By this time, I was no longer on campus at Corlew. I had went to Campus Villa Apartments.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you called the police, why? Again, the second time?
To let them know that I didn't flee the scene, to let them know that I was willing to come in and talk to them and tell them what I saw.
Okay. And did you come in and talk to the police and give them an interview?
Yes.
Did you also write a statement?
Yes.
And have you talked to me as well?
Yes.
And have you talked to the defense attorneys as well? Have they ever called you?
Who would that be?
Mr. Brandon?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Your Honor, if I could have a second.
Sure. All right.
But could you give us your phone number? I think you did give it to us before.
901.
Thank you, ma'am.
Question, Mr. Vance?
Your Honor, if I can interrupt for just a second, I may have made a mistake. I'll ask you that question. As far as, could I clear it up for?
Sure, if you wouldn't mind, Mr.
I'm
Vance?
sorry.
Yes, sir. Sure, go ahead.
When I asked you your phone number, did you give me your phone number now? The one
That I had then?
2001. I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Brandon.
Thank you, Mr. Brandon. Any questions?
Ms. Reese, you were 18 years old on March the 2nd, 2011. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I think you told the district attorney that you were also from Memphis,
Yes.
Dyersburg to be specific.
No.
Oh, where at?
Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay. Okay.
No.
And you met Miss Madden at MTSU,
Yes.
and y'all kind of became friends after Christmas. Is that right?
Yes.
And Miss Madden was staying with Miss Caldwell, I think you said, in Corlew Hall. Is that right?
Yes.
And I think you told the DA that you knew of some problems that she had had with Miss Stewart's boyfriend always being over at the apartment. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, Wednesday, March the 2nd, was that the week before spring break?
Yes.
Okay. And I assume everybody's kind of excited, right?
Yes.
Get out of school for at least a week, right?
Yes.
And what were you planning on doing that week of spring break, ma'am?
I was actually planning on riding back to Memphis with Shanterrica. She had talked to her parents about it and asked would it be okay. That was my plans, to ride back to Memphis with her.
Her daddy was coming to pick her up?
Yes.
Okay. And you were going to see your family also, I guess?
Yes.
Now, you testified y'all had been around each other earlier that day. Y'all had maybe gone and eaten something and gone and gotten some ice cream.
Yes.
And you went and got some marijuana, got a cigar, and you walked back over to Miss Madden's apartment. Is that right?
Yes.
And did you have a car?
No.
And did Miss Madden have a car?
No.
Y'all just walked wherever you went?
Yes.
Okay. And was that the first time you'd walked to her apartment?
I believe it was.
Would that have been the first time you'd ever been there?
No, I take that back. It wasn't the first time. It was maybe the second.
Okay. That you'd been to her apartment?
Yes.
All right. And did you walk to get there then?
Yes.
Y'all smoked marijuana,
Yes.
kind of talking, having a good time. What is it y'all two were planning on going to do later on that night?
I had a concert to go to for my music class. We were supposed to go.
Okay. Something for MTSU?
Yes.
And that was something that was going on the campus of MTSU?
Yes.
And y'all girls were going to go over there later on?
Yes.
And then there came a knock on the door, is that right?
Yes.
Now, I think you testified you had gone to the refrigerator to get something out of it when you heard the knock?
Yes.
And you said Miss Madden went to the door and opened the door, correct?
Yes.
And you said that the police officer asked about marijuana and could he search, right?
Yes.
And you were in the room present for that, right?
Yes.
And you saw Miss Stewart came out into the same room so I guess all four of y'all were in the room at that point, is that right?
Yes.
The four being yourself and Miss Madden, the police officer, and Miss Stewart. Would that be true?
Yes.
Okay. And so the police found a marijuana roach in the room, is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And the police officer told you to flush the marijuana roach that he found in the room,
Yes.
and you did what he told you, correct?
Yes.
And the only reason I ask you to talk out loud is the court reporter's typing down what you say. I'm not trying to be hard with you.
I'm sorry.
But it's okay. And the police officer found some cigar shavings in the garbage can, is that right?
Yes.
And he asked Miss Madden to take that out to the dump, is that right?
Yes.
Or to the dumpster?
Yes.
Miss Madden came back in the apartment after talking to the dumpster, or after talking to the officer, correct?
Yes.
And she walked to Miss Stewart's door, correct?
Yes.
She didn't run to the door.
No.
She didn't break in a room, did she?
No.
She didn't kick the door in.
No.
She didn't push it in.
No.
She didn't force entry into that room in any capacity, is that right?
No.
She knocked on the door.
Yes.
Miss Stewart opened the door, is
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
Now, when Miss Stewart opened the door, you were still sitting on Miss Madden's bed, is that right?
Yes.
And in the beginning, the two girls talked, is that right?
Yes.
And Miss Madden asked her why she called the police on her, correct?
Yes.
And from sitting on Miss Madden's bed, you could see Miss Madden as she was standing at the door talking to Miss Stewart, correct?
Yes.
The words start getting heated during the course of this conversation. Would that be true?
Yes.
And you saw the results of Miss Madden getting shoved.
I didn't see it.
You didn't see her get
I couldn't
pushed.
see. By this time, they had moved into Tina's room.
Okay.
Where I was sitting, I could only see the door of Tina's room. So by this point, I could no longer see. I just heard somebody say, "Don't push me."
Okay. And you don't know who said that?
No.
And then there was a fight going on, is that right?
Yes.
And you went to see what was going on, and then you ran and locked yourself in Miss Madden's room, is that right?
Yes.
And why'd you do that?
Because they were fighting.
And did you hear Miss Stewart say something about where'd your little friend go?
Yes.
Tell the jury what you heard.
She was like, "Where's your friend?" That's it. She was asking where I was, but I was in Shanterrica's room.
Tell the jury what Miss Stewart said she was going to do to Miss Madden's little friend.
I don't remember.
You don't-
I remember her saying, "Where's your friend? Where's your friend? Is she scared?" That's what she said. She said, "Where your friend? Where your friend? Is she scared?"
Okay. And that's right before you went and ran and locked yourself in the bedroom?
No, this was I was in the room by this time.
Okay. And tell this jury what you were fixing to do from that third-story apartment.
I was about to jump out the window.
That's how scared you were.
Yes.
You ever been in a fight before, Miss Reese?
No.
You ever known Miss Madden to be in a fight before?
No. Not from when I've known her.
Okay. Now, the DA asked you a minute ago, did you hear someone say something about a knife shit and screaming, "No, please, let me go," or something along those lines?
Yes.
And the DA asked you, did you know who said that? And you said, "No, I don't have any idea."
No, I don't remember.
But do you remember giving a written statement, ma'am?
Yes.
And did you give a written statement on the night this occurred?
Yes.
And in that written statement, did you tell the police officer that you thought that was Shanterrica Madden that said that?
Yes, I said I thought, but I was not quite sure.
Well, ma'am, you've been knowing Miss Shanterrica Madden, and y'all hung out quite a bit, didn't you?
Yes.
You knew Miss Madden's voice, didn't you?
Yes.
Now, you said that you went by Renee Reese and that Miss Madden always called you Renee. Is that right?
Yes.
What's your nickname, ma'am?
Nene, but only very few people call me that. Mainly family.
You also heard more statements, didn't you?
As far as...
In the room when they were fighting, you could hear some of what was being said, couldn't you?
Yes, I could hear.
And you heard, please don't, my heart's beating, don't, correct?
Yes.
And you believe that was Miss Madden that said that, don't you?
Yes, I thought it was, yes.
You could hear the fight going on, couldn't you?
Yes.
And when you heard the fighting stop, Miss Madden knocked on the door, or you came out, would that be true?
She knocked on the door, yes.
Immediately when you quit hearing noise in Miss Stewart's room, Miss Madden knocked on the door of the room you were in, correct?
Yes.
And you saw a knife and blood, correct?
At first, when she first came to the door, I didn't see it. I just saw the blood on her arm. And I asked her, I was like, what happened? She was like, she cut me. I was like, but she was like, come on, let's go, we have to go. And I went back into her room and grabbed my purse. And on the way out, that's when she was coming out of Tina's room with the bag and the blanket. And then as she was sticking the blanket in the bag, I saw the knife fall out. Well, a portion of the knife.
And you realized that situation you didn't need to be no part of, is that right?
Yes.
And you looked, and the door was cracked to Miss Stewart's room, is that right?
Yes.
And when you looked in there, you saw Miss Stewart's lying motionless on the floor, correct?
Yes, I saw her leg. That was all I saw.
Motionless. You saw her leg laying motionless on the floor, correct?
Yes.
I think that's what you actually wrote down, isn't that right?
I can't remember what I wrote down, but
Okay.
I remember seeing her leg.
And you called 911, is that right?
Yes.
Now, did you, and this may be a small point, I don't know, but did you see Miss Madden put the phones in her bra, or were the phones hanging out of her bra and you saw them shove the phone back in?
Well, when she came out, they were already in her bra. And when I looked at it, she pushed it further into her bra.
Okay, and in addition to the written statement that you made in this case, you talked to Detective Taylor, is that right?
Yes.
And if Detective Taylor wrote down, Shanterrica came outside...
Objection to Paul's question.
What did you say?
Let me, if I can strike it and re-ask it.
Sure.
Did you tell Detective Taylor that when Shanterrica came outside, and you observed Shanterrica put her roommate's cell phone and her own cell phone in her bra?
I saw it in her bra. I don't know if I worded it wrong when I made the
Okay.
statement, but I saw the phones in her bra. And I saw her, when I looked at it, she pushed it further down. She pushed, not her phone, both phones were in her bra, but she pushed the blue phone further in her bra.
And whichever way it went, she had phones in her bra at
Yes.
some point. Is that
Yes.
right? Okay. Now, the testimony a moment ago was that you called Miss Caldwell at 6:07. Is that right?
Yes.
And would that have been immediately before the fight was over or after the
No,
fight? or
it
what?
was during the fight.
Okay. And this fight lasted for a very short period of time. Would that be true?
I don't remember exactly how long it lasted. It didn't last long, but because of the situation I was in, it seemed like it lasted longer than what it probably did.
I bet it did. And so you called Miss Caldwell at some point while the fight's going on, and that's 6:07, right?
Yes.
And then you called the dispatcher at 6:45. Is that right?
Yes.
And I don't want you to agree with something that you're not sure about the answer. Let me ask you this way. If the dispatcher testified that and played the 911 tape for this jury and shows that your call came in at 6:45, you wouldn't dispute that, would you?
No.
And the voice we heard on that dispatch tape would be representative of what your emotional state was. Is that right?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that your voice was very calm on that videotape?
No.
Okay. And on that videotape, did you tell the dispatch about that there's a knife?
Oh, goodness. I can't remember exactly what was said. I remember calling. I remember saying, I heard fighting. Can someone go check it out? That was the main purpose of the call. I said, I heard fighting. Not sure what's all going on, but can someone please check it out?
And this is some 38 minutes after the fight, correct?
Yes.
And did you tell the dispatch that somebody's lying motionless on the floor?
I don't think, I can't remember. I cannot honestly remember.
And you didn't tell them your name either, did you, ma'am?
No, I did not.
You just told them you heard a fight?
Yes. But like I said, at this point, I did not know that Tina was dead.
Well, you knew that Miss Stewart, you knew when you left the apartment that Miss Stewart was lying motionless on the floor, correct?
Yes, but, well, I wouldn't say motionless. I don't remember if I used the word motionless, but I do remember she was laying on the floor. Now, she could have been injured and laying on the floor, or at this point, I did not know she was dead.
Well, did you tell Detective Taylor that as you were leaving and you looked back towards Tina's room, you saw her leg lying motionless on the floor?
I don't remember if those were my exact words, but I do remember saying that I saw her leg lying on the floor.
And you didn't go back in this apartment after this event occurred, did you, ma'am?
No.
When you left, you were done with it?
Yes.
Okay, so if you told Detective Taylor that you saw her leg lying motionless on the floor, this would have been at or about 6:07, right behind you calling Carlisha Caldwell, correct?
I called Carlisha towards the beginning of the fight.
Okay.
So the fight had gotten over with by the time I seen Tina's leg.
Right, because
Yes.
you'd run in the room because you were scared.
Yes.
Those are my questions.
Question back there just a second.
Sure.
Ms. Reese, I don't have a whole lot of questions, but I do have a few more.
Okay.
Now, in this altercation, who was your friend?
Shanterrica.
Did you have any relationship with Tina Stewart?
That was my first night meeting her.
Okay. And you had a cell phone, didn't you?
Yes.
And you've heard a whole lot of criticism about that you didn't call 911.
Yes.
Do you know if Miss Madden did?
Excuse me?
Do you know if Miss Madden ever called 911?
I don't know.
You didn't stab Miss Stewart, did you?
No.
Now, as far as jumping out the window or that kind of thing, were you afraid of what was going on?
Yes.
And you've told us today that you do not know, and you're under oath,
Yes.
and you understand the significance of that, that today, as you sit there, you cannot tell the ladies and gentlemen of this jury whose voice it was that was saying any of those words.
I do not remember. Everything was happening so fast. It was a lot going on. I could not make out the voices. I do not remember.
Okay, let me ask you this. If you had been able to make out the voices and knew that it was your friend who was saying, she's got a knife, call 911, you'd have done it, wouldn't you?
Well, I didn't know who was saying it. I didn't know.
Listen to my question. If you had been able to hear the voices to the point that you knew that the voice was Miss Madden's saying, call 911, she's got a knife, you would have called 911, wouldn't you?
Well, I don't know, because even in the first statement that I wrote, the very first one, I said I assumed that it was Shanterrica because I thought it was. I said I assumed it was Shanterrica's voice, and I didn't call 911 because I didn't know exactly what was going on. I just knew they were fighting. I didn't know exactly what was going on. I was trying to get myself out of the house, out of that situation, what was going on at that point.
And you didn't know whose voice it was that said that?
No.
Now, as far as stop, don't, my heart's beating or still beating, do you know who it was in this particular altercation that had an injury to their heart that they might be concerned about?
No.
Do you know if Miss Madden had any injury to her heart?
I don't know.
You know Miss Stewart's dead, don't you?
Yes.
Have you learned that she was stabbed in the heart?
I knew she was stabbed. I never knew exactly where she was stabbed.
Now, as far as when you were giving your interviews and your written statements, could you have made mistakes when you gave that statement?
Yes.
And tell me why.
Because there was a lot going on. It was a lot going on. Everything was jumbled. I was shooken. So, yes, I could have made a mistake. I could have left something out. That's a possibility, yes.
You were asked a lot about Detective Taylor's report and his summary of what you said.
Yes.
And obviously this would be his summary of what you said as he remembered.
Okay, yes.
Your Honor, at this point, we'd like to show this.
Okay.
Okay, it says Renee Reese, gives your date of birth, age 18, March 2nd, 2011. The interview room, audio recording begins at 59 minutes on disc. I'm going to read it to you. You tell me if there's anything in here that you would, does appear to be your statement. That on the above date, Detective Mitchell and I interviewed Renee Reese. Now this is Detective Taylor who is writing this. This is not what you said, this is what he believes you said.
Okay.
And that's what Mr. Brandon was asking you about.
I don't like to object because I want the jury to be able to hear everything, but they objected whenever I...
Just how much your objection is if you have one.
Well, it's inappropriate question. It's not the appropriate way to ask the question. He wants to ask her, did she say something in particular? That's perfectly fine, but to stand here and read somebody else's statement is not the way to examine her.
What do you say?
Yeah, I want to bring out the fact that what he has cross-examined her on was not her statement, but what an officer wrote down from his memory as being her statement.
And other objections?
Well, I agree with that. I asked, so it's cumulative on that particular issue because I asked her, is that what she told Detective Taylor? That was the basis of my question. So what somebody else wrote?
Yeah, do you have an objection to the introduction of this document?
This document's hearsay, but...
I'll sustain the objection. Take it off the screen, please.
Yes, sir.
And you can ask
Yes,
those questions.
Okay, in his summary, did you tell him that you heard someone yell, she's got a knife, call 911, call 911,
Yes.
and that you initially thought it was Miss Madden, but now you believe it was Miss Tina Stewart?
Yes.
He didn't read you that part, did he?
No.
Now, as far as the purpose for y'all going over to the apartment, I understand you were smoking marijuana, but was there any other purpose for y'all going over there?
She was going to get clothes.
Okay, and for what
She had to
purpose?
wash clothes because she hadn't been staying at her apartment. She had been staying in Corlew with Carlisha Caldwell. So she was going to wash clothes and grab some clothes for the next couple of days,
Okay.
or for the next day or so.
And spring break would not have started until the next Monday, would it?
Yes.
And so as far as those closed, they weren't for spring break, were they?
No.
That's all, Judge.
Other questions, Mr. Grant?
Ms. Reese, you gave your written statement in your discussion with Detective Taylor on March the 2nd, is that right?
Yes.
And we're sitting here today on May the 11th, and that's March the 2nd, 2011, is that right?
Yes.
And we're sitting here today on May the 11th, 2012, is that right?
Yes.
And so we're some 14 months after this particular incident, is that right?
Yes.
My question to you is, would your recollection of what occurred have been better on March the 2nd, 2011, the night this happened, or would it be better today, May the 11th, 2012, 14 months later?
It would probably be better now
Okay.
because that night, like I said, I was shooken up. It was a lot going on. So I would say it would probably be better now.
14 months later, you got a better memory?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions?
Have you told the jury the truth as you remember it, as best
Yes.
you can?
Yes.
That's all.
Other questions, Mr. Grant?
No, sir.
Any questions from our jurors? Not seeing any. Thank you, ma'am. You can step down. You're free to stay in the courtroom. We're free to go. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take our lunch break now. Remember my instructions to you, not to discuss the case amongst yourselves or let anyone discuss in your presence. We'll start back at, let's see. Let's try about 1:40. Is that okay, officers? And I apologize for making y'all late for lunch. I hope they didn't already put it out if it is going to be really cold. So if it is, blame me. All right? Okay, everybody rise, please. We'll start back at 1:40. Keep going. You raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so you got.
Do you repeat it?
I'm just saying you did.
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. Have a seat, please. I need you to speak up. There's a small black microphone there in front of you. I need you to speak up to that for me. That will help me hear. Can you do that for me?
Yes.
Okay, if you'll tell me your first name and last and spell them both.
Renee, R-E-N-E-E, Reese, R-E-E-S-E.
Just a little bit louder, perfect, okay? Your five questions.
Yes. Miss Reese, where are you from?
Memphis, Tennessee.
And can you tell me, are you currently a student?
Yes.
And where are you a student at?
Middle Tennessee State.
And what are you studying?
Psychology.
Where did you grow up?
Memphis,
And what year did you graduate from high school?
2010.
And after high school, did you immediately come to MTSU in the fall?
Yes.
And why did you choose MTSU? Close to home?
Close to home. 901.
Now, I want to ask you some questions about your relationship with certain people. How would you describe your relationship with Shanterrica Madden?
We were friends in my freshman year. Well, second semester freshman year, we were friends.
Okay. Did you know each other, for example, in high school,
No, we met in college.
in college? Okay. And as far as Tina Stewart, did you know her?
No.
Now, when you, as far as that last semester in the spring of 2011, how often would you see Miss Madden?
Almost every day.
Okay. And tell us why you would see almost every day.
She was in Corlew a lot because her and her roommate didn't get along, so she stayed in Corlew a lot with the friend.
Now, Corlew, was that a dormitory
Yes.
on the MTSU campus?
Yes.
And you say she stayed there a lot. When was it a period of time that she was staying there a lot? Was it a spring semester, fall semester, or when was it, if you recall?
It was spring semester.
And do you know who she stayed in the dorm room with?
Yes. Carly Chicago.
And do you know Carly Chicago?
Yes.
And how would you describe your relationship with her?
We were friends.
Now, as far as you and Miss Madden, did y'all ever socialize about and eat together and things?
Yes.
Did she know what your name was?
Yes.
Did she know that your last name's Reese?
Yes.
Why did she call you?
Renee.
Now, on any given week, can you estimate how many times she would stay at Corlew back in the spring?
Like 3-4 times of the week.
Now, do you know any, as far as the relationship between Miss Caldwell and Miss Madden, Did Miss Caldwell ever provide transportation to Miss Madden?
Yes.
Now, I want to take you to March the 2nd, 2011, the reason why you're here today. Can you tell me what classes you had that day, if you remember? Or could you tell me when you got out of class?
I'm trying to remember whether it was a Tuesday or Wednesday.
It would be Wednesday.
Wednesday. I had 3 classes that day. I was probably through by 3, 2:45, 3.
On that particular day, would you have had any classes with Miss Madden?
No.
Okay. On that particular day, would you have come into contact with her after you got out of class?
Yes.
And you know approximately where it was and when it was that came into contact with her?
It was Corlew after my class.
Don't-
Madden, yes.
And specifically, do you remember where you were at in Corlew?
I remember us going to get something to eat in McKelly's, which is the cafeteria right below Corlew.
Okay. Now, I may have neglected to ask you, but where were you living at this time?
It's Corlew.
Corlew.
Yes.
And did you live on the same floor that Miss Madden was living on?
Yes.
So after y'all had gotten something to eat, can you tell me what you did next?
We went to one of the other places. I think we got ice cream that day. We went to another cafeteria place on campus. Then we went to buy weed and we
Okay,
went to...
let me stop you there.
Okay.
After you got your ice cream and things like that, are you about to tell us about a purchase of drugs?
Yes.
And can you tell us where it was that you actually got drugs?
On campus.
And who was it that actually purchased the drugs?
Me and Shanterrica, we were together at the time.
Who paid for them?
I don't quite remember.
Okay. And do you know what kind of drugs did you buy?
It was weed.
Marijuana?
Yes, marijuana.
Okay. And you know how much you bought?
Just like a gram thing. I don't know. I can't remember.
Just so the ladies and gentlemen will know, you're going to make one marijuana cigarette with marijuana in a cigar. Would that be enough for one? Two,
Yes.
how many?
1 or 2.
Okay. And then after you had purchased the marijuana along with Miss Madden, where'd you go next?
First we went to the store. Then we went to her apartment
Okay. When you went to the store, what was the purpose for going to the store?
to buy the cigarillos.
Okay. And what kind of cigarillos did you buy?
I just remember, I believe it was strawberry. That's all I remember.
Okay. And what was the reason that you buy cigarillos or?
For the marijuana.
Okay. And then what store did you go to, if you remember?
I don't remember.
Was it near campus?
Yes.
Were you walking during all of this?
Yes.
All right. And after you had made the purchase of drugs and purchase of the cigarillos or cigars, where'd you go next?
To Shanterrica's apartment.
And can you approximate about what, and I know this is approximation, you didn't have your wife on watch anything, but what time do you think that you got to Shanterrica's apartment?
It was around 5.
Okay. And would that be 321 Raiders Crossing? You know the number?
I don't remember the number. I just remember it was her apartment.
Okay. And was that the same apartment that she shared with Teen
With
Stewart?
yes.
When you got at the apartment, did you notice anyone else was there?
No. We believed that we were there by ourselves.
Okay. And when you got to the apartment and thought you were there by yourselves, what did y'all do?
We smoked weed. We watched TV. We smoked weed.
Do you remember what you watched on TV?
Yes.
What was it?
106 Park.
Okay. Now, you say you smoked the marijuana. Can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what process you would have to go through to smoke the marijuana as y'all did?
Okay, well, first you have to break the cigarillo down, take the shavings out, put the weed in, and roll it back up, pretty much.
And who did that?
Shanterrica.
She was the one that actually prepared the cigarillo, or
Yes.
did both of y'all smoke marijuana?
Yes.
And what room were you in when you smoked the marijuana?
Shanterrica's room.
Now, as far as Corlew Hall, does it have smoke detectors there?
Yes.
And they allow smoking in Corlew Hall?
No.
And if there's smoke marijuana there, possibility the alarm will go off?
Yes.
Now, how soon after y'all had completed smoking the marijuana did something else happen? And you knocked at the door or anything like that?
It wasn't long at all. Maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes. It wasn't long at all.
Do you know if you ever raised any windows of the apartment while you smoking marijuana?
I believe we did open Shanterrica as well, but I can't remember if we did or not.
Okay. And after y'all had the marijuana, did you have anything to eat?
Yes, I went and I got a Nutri-Grain and some Sunday.
Okay. After you got that, then what happened?
And that's what hurt the knock on the door.
Okay. And once you heard the knock on the door, tell me what you remember seeing, hearing then.
Well, Shanterrica came out to check the door, and when she opened the door, I walked back into her room. And then she came back there. She was like, he said to come out here, and it was the cop. And he was like, why'd you go to that room? I said, well, this isn't my place. I didn't feel that I needed to be out here when you came in. So I just went to her room, you know.
Okay. At that time, did you know that Miss Stewart was there?
Well, at this time, she had came from the back. She was standing in the living room.
And was this the first time that you realized that someone had been in the apartment?
Yes.
And then once you came outside to where the police were, I'm outside of the bedroom,
Yes.
the area, what happened next?
He told us that he had been called for the smoking, and he asked could he check the apartment. And she was like, yes, and he came and he checked. He didn't really find much, except for the shavings and the little bit of the blunt that was left that like we couldn't smoke. So he told her to take out the trash, and he told me to flush the drains down the toilet.
Okay. And did you do what he told you? Flush
Yes.
down the toilet?
Yes.
And he told her to take out the trash?
Yes.
And did she take out trash?
Yes.
Did he go with her?
Yes.
So you're in the apartment. Where are you at in the apartment when they leave?
I was in Shanterrica bed.
And do you know approximately how long they were outside?
No.
Now, did you see Miss Madden come back inside the apartment?
Yes.
Can you tell me if you noticed anything about her demeanor at that time?
She was upset.
And how did you tell that she was upset?
Just by, I just tell like she didn't see anything. She went straight and knocked on Tina's door. And like she didn't say anything to me. She just walked right past him and knocked on Tina's door.
And when you knocked on it, did she knock on it lightly? Or
No.
how did you do it?
She just knocked like she was sick.
Okay. After she knocked on the door, what do you remember seeing next or hearing next?
They were talking,
Well, did Tina open the door? Or you-
yes, Tina came to the door and they started arguing. She was like, why didn't you tell me? Tina was like, well, you didn't tell me when we called the office about my boyfriend being here. And she was like, I shouldn't have to tell you. And Tina was like, well, I didn't have to tell you. So that's how the argument began.
Okay. At some point, after you heard that argument, where were you at this particular time?
I was still in Shanterrica. I'm still on the bed.
And at some point, did you hear somebody say, don't push me?
Yes. After they were arguing, going back and forth, then I heard somebody say, don't push me.
Do you know who that was?
No.
So you can't tell us which one it was that actually said that? Right. And after you heard the don't push me, what did you hear or see next?
And I heard boom, 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 and I ran to see what was going on, and they were fighting. And I went back into Shanterrica's room and locked the door.
And once you locked the door, what did you do next?
I called Carlicia.
Carlicia?
Carlicia Caldwell, yes,
And what was your purpose in calling her?
to find a ride to get out of there
Why did you want to get out of there?
because we're fighting.
Now, do you know how many times you called Carlicia or how many times you may have called anybody else while you were inside that room?
I called Carlicia maybe 2 or 3 times.
Okay. What do the records show? Where you've looked at the records that we have, you not disagree with any of the phone records, do you?
No.
Okay. At some point, did you hear a knock on the room that you were in Miss Madden's bedroom?
Yes.
And when you heard that knock, what did you do?
Shanterrica was like, we have to go. She was like, come on, we have to go. I was like, what happened? She was like, we have to go. I was like, where's Tina? She's like, she left. And so I went back to grab my purse. When I came out, Shanterrica had a blanket and was taking it in the bag. And I was walking out. She dropped a piece of it, up to the knife fell on the floor. And that's when I was like, I'm leaving. I'm to find a ride. I'm gone. And,
I'm sorry.
okay, and I was in the room. She was standing like for the hallway. That's where the knife dropped. She hurried up, stuck it back in there, and I was like, I'm leaving. And she was like, she went to hand me the bag, and I was like, I'm not touching it, and I left the apartment.